Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Ready?
Yep. Let's go. Let's laugh. We are imperfect after all.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to the Imperfect Us podcast.
I'm Leanne Camilleri.
And I'm Lisa Downs. As hosts of the Imperfect Us podcast, we share relatable stories that celebrate we are all perfectly imperfect humans leading perfectly imperfect lives. We discover practical and evidence-based strategies that draw on the science of well-being and positive psychology that help us to uncover the barriers that might hold us back from being our authentic selves and turn them into opportunities so that we can show up more consistently, doing what we really aspire to do and who we want to be.
We acknowledge the Wadawurrung and the Kaurna people as traditional custodians of the beautiful lands on which this podcast is being recorded. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend this respect to other First Nations people who are here with us today. So, let's get started.
Hello and welcome everyone. In today's conversation, we are speaking with our good friend Jodie Cooper. Having grown her own coaching and presenting business over the last 18 years, Jodie has become an expert in positive psychology, helping leaders to develop a mindset and culture that's more positive, productive, and profitable. Success to Jodie is living each day to its fullest and making the moments count. She has a master's in positive psychology, loves hiking, snowboarding, stand-up paddleboarding, and pretty much everything to do with outdoors. She holds a degree in commerce and a diploma in positive psychology and graduated as an officer in the Australian Army Reserve at Duntroon. Jodie's hiked the Kagoda Trail, spent 3 years travelling Australia and brings enthusiasm and positivity to everything she does. She's on a mission to inspire hope and make the world a better place, one person at a time. So, let's dive into today's conversation with Jodie.
Jodie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Leanne.
We would so love to hear about what led you to the wonderful work that you do.
Gosh, it's been a while, to be honest. I got the opportunity when I was pretty young, so when I was in my early 20s, to work with a business coach in a family business. And that was after doing a commerce degree. Having somebody really hold my hand in that business space was incredible. And it moved well beyond business into the values that I had and the sort of person that I want to be and the sort of leader that I want to become. And in the back of my head, I was probably 23, 24, it started rattling around of, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to help people ask these big questions and then make changes in their life that can guide and support not just them, but the people around them. So I was pretty lucky at an early age to be exposed to something like that.
Funny, isn't it, when you can have such an amazing mentor early on that is just so impactful in your life?
Oh, it was an incredible, something that I will always be grateful for, because it really shifted what I saw for myself. And up until that point, I actually thought that I wanted to be in the corporate world and earning big money and, driving nice cars and living in big houses. And once I kind of had this business coach, it just, everything shifted in terms of what was important and what I valued and who I wanted to be. So it was a very big turning point.
Asking those questions or being challenged with questions, helping you to see the future, is quite powerful, I guess, in that, all of a sudden you start to see paths that perhaps weren't opened up to you or you weren't aware of beforehand. How did you find that, in that process?
Yeah, I was pretty lucky, because this was, 18 years ago. And so it was really the emergence of life coaching. And so I got in at that ground level where other people were starting to wonder what it was, how does it work, what does it look like? And so being in when the industry really started to take off and the wider society was starting to ask these questions and start to shift and value that sort of transition. So I think it was just, sometimes that magical timing of right place, right time, and the planets align.
And to inspire into possibilities that may never have been there if you hadn't have engaged with that business coach.
Yeah, 100%.
So, Jodie, part of the conversation we were having recently was a little bit about your adventure that you've been going on. And you had planned just before COVID hit, or just as COVID hit. So you have to let us know whether I've got that right or not. But you were planning already a year-long family trip around Australia, which ended up being 3 years. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And in our conversation, when you mentioned about the value of what you did at that time, are you able to just to share with us some insights into your Australian adventure?
Yeah. So I guess the backstory of that is it was planned for a long time. So it took us, almost 10 years to kind of plan and save and, get all our ducks in a row. And we decided to do it when the kids were, I think they were 7 and 8 when we left. And we left before COVID. So we left 2019 in November. And it was just an opportunity for us to really have a gap year in terms of being a normal functioning adult and tap out and go, we don't want to play that game anymore. We just want to do nothing, play with the kids, go surfing, and essentially have a year off. Initially we got chased down the coast by bushfires, if you remember that south coast. Horrific. We got evacuated down near Myrtleford, and then we made it to Tasmania just before COVID hit. And so when COVID hit, we were in St Helens in Tasmania. And it was just, we kind of looked around and went, well, we're on an island, off an island in a global pandemic. Let's not go anywhere. So we decided to stay, and everything just worked out beautifully. We ended up in St Helens in Tasmania for 12 months. I worked in the local government role and developed a community wellbeing project down there, which is very exciting. We just got another 2 years funding for that. So it's now been going for 3 years. Yeah, and we've just got another 2-year extension on that funding. It's been great. But in terms of the bigger trip, once we left St Helens after 12 months, we travelled all around Australia. So we did basically a big lap all the way around the outside, and then a mini lap up to North Queensland and down through Northern Territory and Central Australia. And I think the big thing that everybody says, what was your favourite place, or what did you love most? And they expect the highlight. Like when you travel, people want to think about, Uluru or, the 12 Apostles, those sorts of things. But the real value for us was the nothing moments. It was the moments between, I remember getting to Tasmania and walking along this railway line as the sun set and picking blackberries with the kids.
Oh, beautiful.
It was time to do that. We stopped at a farm in central Victoria, and they had so many lavender bushes. And my daughter and I just spent all afternoon deadheading these lavender, and then we made little pot puree bags. And so it wasn't the things that we saw or the places that we went. It was all of the tiny micro moments in between that often, I think, in your normal day-to-day, you don't get time to do that, just laying in the grass and watching the clouds for an hour.
In normal life, we get so bogged down with the busyness of work and the demands on us, and we're always giving. And then to have an experience like this where you stop and you, for want of a better explanation, I guess, stop and smell the roses. It's a shame that it has to be away from our normal environment. But what special connection you would have made in those moments?
Yeah, it was like when we left, it was challenging, the dynamic of taking a family of 4 and then putting us inside a little caravan. I'm sure that all of you can, and your listeners can imagine, people with kids and a partner confined to a very small space. Like there's going to be challenges. After 3 years, though, when we came home and unpacked our caravan into our home, we've got a fairly big home, we found that we were just all sitting in one place on top of each other.
I know.
Oh my God, she'd be up in her room and she'd go, Mum, where are you?
Oh,
And it really did, as much as, there was obviously challenges around homeschooling and, getting on each other's nerves and all of that. At the end of the day, I think the privilege of stripping everything in life away and only having the core unit of our family was just such an incredible experience. And it just made us so tight-knit and we know each other so well. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It's been tricky adjusting though, coming back to the real world.
I bet. And, it doesn't just have to be a family, a partner and a dog in a caravan.
are you speaking of your life experience, Leanne?
Yes.
What a privilege, though, Jodie, to experience that. But also, if you go back further to that first part, that you actually planned that to do that together and to see what might happen and the learnings that have come out of that. I just think that's so beautiful. And it may have been challenging, but, do the rewards outweigh some of the challenges? And getting to know each other in that way through those challenges, it's just such a beautiful story that you'll have forever.
It was funny when we left, and it was tricky leaving. A lot of people travel because they're trying to run away from something, but we had actually built lives that we really loved here. Like, we live near the beach. And so when we left, I was devastated. We drove out and I was gushing tears and Xavier Rudd was playing. I'm like, oh. And as I got to the road, I said to myself, just let go of what you think this is going to be. Like, don't fantasize about this being the ideal holiday or all these, sequence of perfect moments. Just let go of what you think it should be and just let it be. And that mantra was kind of in my head. And I think when we hit Tasmania, through the bushfires and the debacles of the first 6 months, it allowed us to really find that flow and follow the energy and just embrace what came rather than holding on to this ideal trip that we had planned. We were able to pivot really quite quickly when things happened. Even little things like if we met a family and we were going left and they were going right, we kind of shrug and go, oh, well, we'll go with you guys for a couple of weeks and just travel with them because everybody got on. And so that, I'm not sure that being able to just let go of the expectations and follow that energy, be a bit playful with what it was pretty cool.
Jodie, how did these insights that you were experiencing impact on the work that you were doing in community and wellbeing?
Yeah, massively. Even when I got to St. Helens, predominantly my work previously had been more professional. And so getting to St. Helens and stepping into that community role, I realised very quickly that you can't teach people stuff. So previously I'd been paid, as the expert to walk in and teach people about wellbeing. Whereas a community, they don't want that. If you walk in and try to teach them something, they kind of see you as a jerk. So it was really about stepping back and asking questions and saying, well, what do you think wellbeing is? How do you already do wellbeing? What would it look like if we amplified wellbeing in this local context? And so that whole community lens was such a huge learning curve for me. And even in my coaching now and the whole positive psychology piece, it's that idea of making sure that we don't commit that ecological fallacy of saying gratitude is good for everyone all the time, because it's just not. It's really being mindful of positive psychology, having these incredible tools and lots of resources that we can use. But our job is really to find the right tool for the right person and to support them to use it in the right way. And I think that was a big piece for me in that community space that I learned.
That's amazing.
And it's really correct, the right tool for the right person at the right time.
And you guys have experienced people when you talk about savouring, or you talk about gratitude, or you might talk about random acts of kindness, and you can kind of see people start to cringe and move away from you.
Oh, another one. Yeah. Roll the eyes.
Mindfulness. I've had people where I start talk about mindfulness and they start getting cranky. And it's just, as a practitioner, just pivoting and figuring out what is the right piece of the puzzle for that person at the right time. That's something that, communities taught me.
Oh, lovely.
It's a bit like the language of well-being that, that's been tossed around as if it's like the newest thing ever in the world. And so what language we use is different. It's got to be purposeful and it's got to be meaningful for whoever it is, whether it's the community, whether it's ourselves or our teams.
Yeah.
Jodie, during your adventure around Australia, you documented your learnings via your blog and social media. And one of our favourite blog posts that you shared was a story about the upside of stress, a crocodile and a paddleboard. And I, along with our listeners, I'm sure would love to understand what happened on this day.
So we were actually at our favourite spot on the Gregory River. It's about 6 hours of dirt road north of Mount Isa in North Queensland. So in terms of remote, pretty remote. And then we're about 20 minutes from the local pub. So all that's up there is a pub. And that was still 20 minutes away. And there's red dirt as far as the eye can see. And then you go down into the Gregory River, which is spring fed. And so it's this incredible river system, and about 3 meters either side of the river is lush ferns and pandanus and just massive old growth gums, and then red dirt either side. So it's this really, really unique environment. And there was not a lot of people down there. There's a 2-kilometre stretch of river. My daughter and I had paddled that, a couple of times before. And so on this particular day, she was 10 at the time, we were paddling up the river and we saw this beautiful little pied cormorant. And the cormorant dived down into the water in front of us and we were just paddling and giggling and, on our paddleboards. But we didn't see it pop up. And so as we were watching the water, we were really fixated on trying to see where this bird popped up. And as I kept paddling to the corner of my eye, probably about 3 meters away, there was this massive crocodile.
Oh my God.
And when I say massive, generally we knew there were freshwater crocodiles, but generally their freshwaters are normally about 3 or 4 foot and they're quite small. This crocodile was longer than our stand-up paddleboards and he was about 1.5 foot. Stop squirming, Lisa.
I know. I'm anticipating it. I'm just trying to think if I was actually there, what I would be doing. I'm pretty sure I'd almost be screaming. But anyway, back to you.
It was, and the scary part was he was elevated probably about 2 feet above where we were, sprawled on this log. And so he looked really big because his belly was hanging, either side of this log. And if he moved or jumped into the water, because we were on paddle boards, the weight of his body would have been enough to tip us. So it was pretty scary. And so in that moment when I saw him, I said to my daughter, take a deep breath. That's the first thing I said, take a deep breath. I want you to look to your right because there's this giant crocodile over there. And in that moment, her legs started to shake. And so her legs started to knock and her board started to wobble.
Oh.
And everything in me just focused on her. So the crocodile was incredible, but I knew that all I needed to do was just to talk Laura through paddling, because if she kept moving, the crocodile didn't even look at us. He didn't move his head, didn't move his eyes. It was like we weren't there because we were making a lot of noise. And so my entire focus in that moment was just that stress response just allowed me that complete clarity of keep Laura moving. That was it. And there were a million other things that I could have done, but it was literally just keep Laura moving. That's my only job. And so it was really interesting because there was a kind of this weird part of me that really wanted to take a photo. But yeah, that it was one of those moments where you're just so grateful. And I think that for me, that stress response is what it's meant to be, as opposed to when you get emails or phone calls or you look at your dirty windows and you feel stressed about it. It's meant for those life-saving moments where there is actually a crocodile right there and you need all of your body to fire up so that it can physically move, and you need your mind to have that absolute laser focus of how do I get out of this situation. So it was a cool experience. I'm glad that we got out of it okay.
I love the way you've just contextualized that. How many of us do stress over our dirty windows, or think about the email or the the negative feedback we've got, whatever it might be. But as you were telling your story then, Jodie, I was actually feeling feelings of it, anxiety, just the whole situation. But at the same time, I was thinking, what an amazing experience, really. Hopefully he had breakfast. Perhaps that's why he wasn't too.
He looked very.
but that I guess caught in a situation where there is an extreme serious side to that, and needing to think clearly. I probably would have been like your daughter. My knees would have been knocking, and I'm sure I would have fallen off. Like I think that that mindful tool that we have is powerful in itself to be able to draw on that. And I guess you have that wisdom to know that was going to be something that would hopefully support you through this situation.
Challenge.
Yes.
Quick little question for you. How were you both once you knew that you were safe? Like when you have that stress response, it can be that complete action. Yeah. And often the movement is one of those parts that ends that stress cycle. But how did you feel after? Because I know sometimes people report that when they're so stressed in a situation like that they're fine when they're in that action phase, but at the end they just crumble.
Yeah. We got to the pain, which was only maybe 10 or 15 metres past the crocodile was, because I just needed to get Laura off the paddleboard.
Yeah.
We stood on this sandy bank and we realised 2 days ago, like that was the croc slide. So that was where the croc was coming in and out, was actually where we stopped. 2 days ago, we stopped and swam at that exact spot.
Oh, wow.
And then that was kind of almost the middle. So we still had another K to paddle. And so we couldn't really stop. We had to keep paddling. And once, like that reticular activation system in your brain, once you see something, everything else becomes that. So we were still paddling. We had to keep paddling. We didn't have any options. We either had to go down the river, past the crocodile again, or up the river where it actually closed in. And so we had to go, we chose to go up the river, not past the crocodile. But we just kept seeing all these logs submerged that we had to paddle past. And that was actually, I think, almost scarier than paddling physically past the crocodile, because our imaginations just went crazy. And then so my husband and son had driven up the river to meet us. And we were fine. And it's interesting that you asked that question, Lisa, because that night, once the kids were in bed, I was like, oh my gosh, imagine if. Like that could have been, it could have been horrific.
Yeah.
We were so far from anywhere. Like, admittedly, so on my paddleboard, I always take like a really simple first aid kit. So bandage, and I had a 2-way radio. So worst case scenario, we probably could have got some form of help, but we were so remote. And so my mind, I really had to talk myself through that, in terms of it could have gone bad, but it didn't. And that's kind of life. We surf all the time, and you know that there are sharks in the water, and you have to go out and surf, and you can have that in the back of your mind, but you kind of still can't let it stop you.
Yeah.
So it was interesting that, I really had to talk myself through that to get back on my paddleboard and keep paddling. and to not let that fear stop me doing something that I love. But you're right, it wasn't until that night when I was in bed and my brain started thinking over.
That's also part of that stress response too, in that cycle to finish it off, which is important. But it's just so interesting to reflect back on, those really struggling situations where you had to act because it was almost like a life and death thing at that time. Could have been, it wasn't, but it could have been. But to reflect on the surprises, the really good things about that you were able to have an action, you knew what to do, you just kept going, kept moving. But then, as you said but you still want to be able to do that and shut down a little bit more of your inner chat because, you still want to do paddleboarding or, like you said, surfing. Sometimes you just got to go through that and keep going.
Yeah. I think as well, we've spent a lot of time, bushwalking and in the ocean and out in nature. And I think there is, I'm not sure if it's faith or optimism or some messy blend of both, but I do have this innate belief that nature is not out to get you.
Yeah.
Like we've seen sharks in the surf a lot. And when we're over in Monkey Mire, sea snakes, we saw many sea snakes, and unlike normal snakes, sea snakes will actually swim towards you because they've got, I think it's a bad sense of hearing, so they come to investigate, and it's not uncommon for them to end up on your paddleboard or wrapped around your arms or legs. I know, cringeworthy, right? But I think having that innate belief that nature is not there to harm you if you're a part of, and that's that biophilia, that real love and affinity with natural environments, that if you're not harming something else, it is really unlikely that they're going to come and attack you. And I think in a number of situations that we've been in out in nature, that underlying sense that it's going to be okay. Like it would take an extreme situation for a snake to choose to bite you if you're not harming it.
Yeah.
You have to be really, really unlucky for a shark to come up to you and then, have a go in that natural environment. Like we just spent a week up at Scott's Head up the coast north of Sydney and swimming with sea turtles. It was amazing. And we're so lucky, like our natural environment here, I think we're so blessed to have it, and it's so grounding. Like it really does give you that sense of peace and awe. And this morning, so we came back home yesterday. I always walk my dog early, and this morning we went down, we've got an island near us and we can walk out to the island. And out on the island, there were 2 seals playing swimming. And so I watched these seals as the sun rose and did some yoga, and I thought, how blessed are we to live in this environment where that's actually available to anyone? Like I don't have to pay $140 to go to a zoo and see these things. I can, jump on my paddleboard or go for a walk. And this natural environment that we have in Australia, I think is such a privilege to be in it and around it.
That is beautiful. Jodie, it's not a surprise that inspiring positivity is your thing. You are so always looking for the best in others and in people, and obviously in nature too. And savouring is a big part of who you are as well, as a coach and a presenter, and when growing thriving communities. So are you able to explain why inspiring positivity in our lives and how savouring might be an amplifier to inspiring positivity in our world?
Yeah, it's a cool question, Lisa. I think there's maybe a couple of pieces. I think giving people hope and that sense of positivity is more important now than it has ever been in our past. Whether it's just our recent past or our distant past, there's a lot of challenges in our current world, and we perhaps are in a privileged position because we can see it really clearly. So we've lived 3 years where we weren't in a normal modern society. we're in teeny tiny communities or out in remote areas. And most of the time we didn't have connection to the internet. So we didn't watch the news. We weren't informed. And it was a really, really lovely way to live. And so coming back now has been quite jarring to see what normal modern society is. And I think more than ever, human beings right now need hope. Because there are so many challenges that we're facing. And I think those challenges have gone from a global context where we were really concerned about the climate crisis and the environment and then the pandemic. But now I think a lot of people are actually just trying to cope. And so that focus has really come just onto the individual of, I'm not sure that I'm okay. And if I'm not okay, I've got no chance of thinking about how to manage or support my environment or my community around me. I just need to pull my head in and just figure out how I'm going to get through the day. And what we've really seen after the 3 years of being away is this massive shift to this people in this struggling state. And I don't think it's not good or bad. It's just kind of a commentary on what we see is. And I think for people to feel like there is hope, we can't act until we can believe and see that there is something better tomorrow. And those pieces of giving people some of the ideas to play with in a gentle framework that fits for them. Like you say, Lisa, that savouring piece. I've worked with clients who have come to me, and quite a lot of people start in this space where they might say, on paper, my life looks amazing. If you ask any of my friends, like, it's all great. Inside, I feel empty. And I feel like there's not a lot of point. Nothing that I do is of value, or I don't like who I am. And sometimes, quite often actually, it's not about helping people to change things in their life. More often than not, it's about helping people to start to see the teeny tiny moments that are already there in their life, and then to start to tune into them and to see how they can amplify them. There was a guy that I worked with years ago, and the first time he came to me, he had children and a dog and a partner. And I said, what are the things that you really love in your life? And this is our first session together. And he goes, there's nothing in my life that brings me joy. I said, wow, like that sounds really tricky. Is there anything that makes you pleased at the end of the day? And he goes, oh, and he couldn't find anything. As much as I dug, it was really, really a struggle for him to do that. And as we worked together, we didn't change any functional elements of his life. He didn't change his job. He didn't change his routine. He didn't lose 10 kilos. But we started to open his eyes up to what was there. By the third and fourth session, I would say, what's going well, or what are you enjoying? He's like, the kids laughed this morning. Like, they spilt the Cocoa Pops everywhere and they just giggled. And he started to see these teeny tiny moments of joy that were always there, but he had just blocked off. And so I think that savouring piece, Lisa, is so often we think things have to change, whereas in reality, if we learn to savour the good stuff, we don't actually have to functionally change very much. We don't have to go and buy new stuff or renovate a kitchen or, have a fancy holiday. It's literally just opening your eyes and starting to notice where the good is, and then reveling in that and sharing it and amplifying it. And if we can do that for ourselves, other people gravitate to that, which is really cool too.
I love that ripple effect of that positivity in others. And I think that humour and laughter is so wonderful. We can't help but laugh when someone else is laughing. And it just always brings a beautiful memory to you, which I think is that savouring bank of all those little things that are going really well.
Well, I'm really enjoying our conversation. Just that perspective on savouring and waking up. I think that was your words. Waking up when we are caught in that humdrum of life, or, not able to see possibility, it can be a very lonely and dark place, for want of a better explanation, when we start to see those possibilities and those things that are often sitting right in front of us that we have turned off our radar to for whatever reason. How nice, how lovely for that man or that client, how nice for that client to wake up and hear, find the joy in his child laughing.
Yeah. And it's what I love is it's so simple. Like it's not rocket science, and it's not expensive. There's another example, and I often talk about chips and gravy moment. I was talking to another client, a younger woman actually, and she had a corporate job and she was really struggling to find the good in her life. And I said, we're not looking for, I climbed Mount Everest this week. We're looking for like the nothings, the little moments in between, the nice conversations. And she goes, oh, actually, you know what, today I sat in the sun and I had chips and gravy. I'm like, that's it. That's the moment. And how good were those chips? Like, everybody loves chips and gravy.
Yeah.
Especially after a stir.
Yeah.
Well, you've earned them by then too.
Yeah. You're allowed to have them.
You can have them anytime, really. Yeah. Jodie, how then has positive psychology and wellbeing science helped your clients to thrive more consistently?
Yeah, I think there's a funny blend of positive psychology coaching, as there's this really cool science that we have over here, which is like the tool belt, but then the coaching piece is having that ability to work with somebody in the right time, right person, right fit, and blend those two things in and out of just a fun conversation. And I think the joy for me is being really fluid in what that looks like. So, often with clients, rather than people just coming in and doing an hour session and then walking out, I try to have it a bit more fluid. So if I take the dog to the beach in the morning and somebody else has made a commitment to go for an early walk, then I'll send them a photo of sunrise and I'll be like, hope you're seeing this too. And they'll send me
beautiful.
Sometimes, yep, got it, I'm out and doing it. And so I think that the blend of, I'm not sure, the hard science. So when particularly professionals hear that science, or everybody really, when they hear the science of the things like the negativity bias and the positivity ratio and the broaden and build theory, those things that we all love and hold very dear in pos psych, but it makes sense and it allows people to go, oh, so my brain's not stupid. I don't have some faulty gene in me that just wants to focus on the negative. Like, that just makes me a human. And then we learn about self-compassion and figure out how they can play with that in and out of their normal daily lives and what that looks like. And so I think that kind of dance between being a bit human and a bit playful with it, using the tools of pos psych, but then really trying to help that individual make it work or find the best of it, the best of what's going to work for them.
And people do love that evidence informed rather than it being a woo-woo, like in the olden days where it was probably back in the 80s. It's just a thought, where the science now is, making that real and accessible for everybody. So Jodie, besides your own fantastic work, which we will be putting in the show notes for all our listeners to see, is there a book or a podcast or a TED Talk that you would recommend to our listeners today based on all of the wonderful things that you're doing?
I was thinking about that. I had a bit of a ponder. There are two, Lisa. Ooh. So the first is Lost Connection by Johann Hari. I think his work is just incredible and it makes so much sense in this modern world why connection is so important. And the work that I do around positive psychology, relationships underpin absolutely everything, whether it's one-on-one with clients or whether it's out in the corporate world. I really think that that sense of human connection is so important to our well-being. And the other book is The Book of Hope by Jane Goodall. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but incredibly inspiring, and it really is a message for mankind to be hopeful and to do what we can in our
She's
space.
incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and really profound. And I think I'm a really big believer of the right message at the right time. And that was a book that I saw like quite a while ago, and then it came to me last year. And when I read it, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that I've got it now, because I wasn't ready to read it when it first landed, and so I think, it's just a beautiful book of hope.
And you have a little book of your own, don't you? Or a couple of them on your website.
Yeah. So I've got a book called Bring Happiness Home. And both my books are kind of a similar format in terms of it's a bit like a picture book. There's lots of beautiful travel-inspired photos and quotes, just with a couple of paragraphs of, like either a positive psychology concept or a concept around happiness and well-being. And I think making things simple in this complex world is, that's part of my job.
Beautiful.
And there's a PDF on my website of my more recent book, which is Working with Wellbeing. And again, if people want to download that for free, that's there for them.
Oh, thank you. We will definitely put that in the show notes. I have to tell you, out of the 18, a couple that really stood out for me right now was fueling up. So obviously having that sleep and oxygen and lots of beautiful nutrition. That was one big thing for me that I'm practicing at the minute. And also Play to Your Advantage by the Teams with Strengths. And I feel like I'm really fantastic at helping people share my gratitude, but I want to add that lens of the strengths so that they are spotting it, or I'm spotting it from them, but they're being aware of it. And there's a lot. There's 18 of them, but they're my two favourites at the moment.
Yeah, and I think strengths, I love that strengths work and helping people see the value in seeing their own strength, and giving them that language and vocabulary then to lift other people up through identifying others' strengths as well. It's so profound how people light up when you point out the best of them, and then they light up and that light shines outwards. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Jodie, thank you so much for your time today. I have just so enjoyed our conversation and love your perspective on well-being through your adventure. It's amazing. As we come to the end of our chat today, do you have a favourite tip or well-being strategy that you can share with our audience today to help inspire more positivity in their lives?
Yeah, I'm going to sneakily do two, because there's two things I think for me really ground me. The first is time in nature. So really making sure that every day I'm out in nature and soaking it up, because that's that's that whole savouring piece. The second is gratitude. A lot of people, particularly now, feel like life is just going so fast and it's slipping by, and it's hard to stop and smell the roses, like you said. And so while I've always been incredibly grateful, I've actually in the last 6 months been deliberately writing it down every night, just 2 or 3 things. And the value of that, Leanne, honestly, I feel like each day now is special.
Yeah.
Like there is a depth and meaning to every single day of my life. Not there wasn't before, but now I sit down deliberately and I reflect on one small thing. It might have been a cuddle from my son, or there was a trumpeter at sunrise up at Scott's Head every morning. He was out there playing his trumpet, practicing. And so those teeny tiny moments when I stop and reflect on my day and I bring out the best of it and I'm grateful for those things, it really amplifies those positives, and it makes it easier to see those things when I'm in them, but it also makes my day valuable and meaningful and less rat racy, less busy and more rich.
thank you for those wonderful strategies. That they are awesome.
Jodie, if people would like to find out a little bit more about the wonderful work you're doing, where's the best place for them to find you?
Probably just my website, so jodiecooper.com.au. There's lots of stuff there, lots of blogs and free bits and bobs. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you. Oh, I just loved exploring well-being through that lens. It was real.
Yeah. Well, she was able to apply it. And what I didn't realise is that she had, and I do now after having this conversation, I do remember when we were finishing our MAP together, because we were in the same cohort, and MAP being Masters of Applied Positive Psychology, is that she was packing or ready to go away. So she went, as soon as we finished, she went straight away on their adventure. But I had no idea that it was going to end up with this miraculous learning and the application of all the work that we've been doing. So much more, like just even the stop in Tasmania and building a community of wellbeing, but through asking questions. That was phenomenal.
Yeah, I know she's done some amazing work down there in Tassie, creating a community of wellbeing. It's amazing work.
Yeah, and she's continued to do that and making substantial impact in the environment down there. I really love the story that, also if you're listening to this one, you know exactly what we're talking about, but also finding hope in the world at the moment with, our wellbeing in such a complex way, and that people are bunkering into much more self rather than outward. And I thought just the way she explained working with some of her executive clients, that helping them to find the hope and the small good things in their life that ends up opening up more to see. I really like the way she's using that authentically with her people.
It truly is the little things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, how beautiful.
It was a wonderful conversation.
Yeah.
All right, everyone.
All right.
Take care.
And thank you for listening to the Imperfect Us podcast. As always, we are extremely grateful to our executive producer, Brenton Ainsworth, for helping us to put this episode together. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with someone you care about, and we would be grateful if you could rate this podcast on iTunes. To continue the conversation and see what we're up to, you can connect with us on LinkedIn. Just search for Imperfect Us. Bye for now.